right. Welcome back, everybody, to the recap episode of the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode 187. We're here. It's Monday. Got a lot of UFC 272 to get into. It was a great night of fights. It was a long night of fights. It felt like I was sitting through a marathon or something, man. I sat in my little chair in the living room for about 6 hours. Wouldn't have it any other way, but it can be a tiring experience sometimes.
Yeah.
But a lot to get into there. Also, the 2022 Hall of Fame gets its headliner. And, just much more UFC 272. So before we get into it, as my throat starts to collapse on me, Dominic, my co-host, the man on my right, how are you feeling on this beautiful Monday morning?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. We're coming off of another pay-per-view card, one that had a pretty good amount of takeaways, and I'm excited to sit down and chit-chat with you for the next little bit here and give our thoughts, our opinions. Moving into the new week, we also are going to have a great card this coming weekend for a fight night, so I think it's going to be a good week, man. March is in full swing. It's been 75 and sunny outside. Whew, I feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have a balcony.
Oh,
I live on
okay.
the third floor. So yesterday I just had that balcony door open. I was just kind of going in and out. Man, it just like felt good yesterday. It was just like I just left the door open so the good air was coming in.
Rejuvenating, you know?
Yeah, hopefully that weather holds up.
That's the thing.
I don't want to go back to the 40s or whatever. Yeah. But I guess when we're watching fights, which requires us to be inside.
True.
I guess the weather doesn't really matter then. But hey, you could always do what I used to do for college football Saturdays. You just take that TV, put it right out there on the porch, baby.
There you go, porch drinking with Noah.
Yes, exactly. I don't think I have the hookups out on my balcony to do it here, but I guess I have a view. I have like a bird eye view from the balcony to
straight
the television.
Into the room.
So I guess I could just sit out there. But I guess enough of that. Enough of the small talk. Right. UFC 272 is what is important, and it starts with the main event. Friends turned enemies, turn one-sided beatdown as Colby Covington gets the win over Jorge Masvidal via unanimous decision. Pretty much what the majority opinion was expecting in terms of the finish, and there wasn't one. It went to a decision. Colby Covington getting a pretty dominant decision win. Dominic, to start our discussion here, I want to ask you, was there anything that surprised you about this fight?
No, not really. It's weird. Like, it was such a big fight, so much on the line, but then here we are recapping, and it's like, I guess it did go as expected, like the headline says. I mean, Colby implemented the game plan that I think we all anticipated. Jorge fought how you would think he was going to fight. I mean, he did okay in the takedown defense, but at the end of the day, it was the pressure. It was the relentlessness of Colby Covington that ended up getting the win. There was the crazy moment in the fourth where they were swinging and banging and Jorge knocked Colby down. But other than that, it was pretty much smooth sailing for Covington from start to finish, man. So nothing too crazy, to be honest.
Well, me and you both were giving a little bit more credit to Jorge Masvidal in the lead-up. So for me personally, I am a little surprised because I didn't think this fight would be near as one-sided as everybody else seemed to think it was. I understood terrible matchup, but Masvidal basically the second half of this fight, you look at that body language, he didn't want to be in there anymore. Yeah. Colby Covington broke him.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of crazy to say.
Says a lot.
Didn't think that would happen. I thought the cardio wouldn't be a problem, and it clearly was. Again, you talked about that shot in the fourth round, a beautiful left hand that dropped Colby Covington. And yet Jorge still looked defeated, did not try to finish that fight, didn't really try to follow up with anything substantial. that was a defeated man. Even when he had his glimmer of hope in his eyes, it was already over.
He had nothing to pounce with, Crazy.
He was too tired or just, again, mentally defeated. It was crazy. It was honestly insane. I got to give a lot of credit to Colby Covington. I know for a lot of people, I don't think there is a lot of credit being given to him because it's like as expected. He did what everybody sort of expected him to do. But I think he deserves a little bit of credit because, it's not easy to be that dominant. And
right.
For him, yes, I understand the 2 losses to the champion, but he's basically solidified him. He is the Robert Whittaker of welterweights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is clearly that second guy. And, like, to me, the difference between 1 and 2 from Usman to Covington is not very, it's not very wide.
Right.
I think it's a short difference, but it's a big difference between 1 and 2 and then the rest of the pack. And that's, obviously we have some names coming up. Gilbert Burns is still definitely in there. Khamzat Chimaev obviously on his way up. But for now, I mean, Colby Covington is clearly silver in this division.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, man. And it really, outside of that, it just takes us to what could be next for both guys. And I guess we should probably start with what Colby said after, because he calls out another former teammate of his, another guy from American Top Team, Dustin Poirier. Noah, I know we kind of texted immediately in the group chat. And it is a big fight. Don't get me wrong. It would be a big fight, more huge storylines. So, that checks boxes for sure. But to me, I felt, and I still do this morning, Sunday morning, that I don't know if that fight will happen. I mean, again, like I said, it just check boxes. It is big. It's going to draw eyes toward it. Dustin's pretty big in the sport right now. Colby's obviously huge as well, but I just don't get a good feel that this fight will happen. I don't think there's much intrigue from Dustin. He even said earlier in the week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but he doesn't even want to fight Colby. But if he does, it's not going to be in the octagon. It's going to be on the street and yada, yada, yada on site. So I don't really know. I still kind of want to get your thoughts anyways, based off your text message too.
So Colby Covington, whether you love him or hate him, you got to say, the guy's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. He comes from that Chael Sonnen school of fight promotion.
Yeah.
And where even going into this fight, I think he already wanted to plan his next step. Yeah. So he wins, he gets on the mic, he calls out Dustin Poirier. And there's a reason for that. Yes, Dustin Poirier has been fighting at lightweight for so long, has never fought at welterweight, while Colby has been in welterweight his entire UFC career. But look at the welterweight division right now. Kamaru Usman said that likely him and Leon Edwards will fight in July. Then you got Gilbert Burns fighting Khamzat Chimaev. Colby's kind of the odd man out right now. Yeah. So he's looking for a big fight. He's looking for a fight that's going to keep him at an elevated level. He doesn't want to, fall into a little bit of obscurity for a while. He wants to keep his name relevant, keep himself, in the headlines. Dustin Poirier, the man who defeated Conor McGregor twice in 2021, would be that guy who is around him, but to me it makes sense. And I'm sure there is some legit heat there. I'm sure Colby, I'm sure they legit don't like each other. But I think that it's more calculated than just him calling out someone he doesn't like. I think it's because he doesn't feel like there's an appropriate matchup for him at welterweight right now. So he's going to go for a guy who's flirted with going to welterweight. But of course, I don't think it's going to happen because for me, I look at Dustin Poirier and I see a man who is pretty clearly focused on Nate Diaz or nothing in terms of the future of his MMA career. I don't see if Nate and Dustin aren't able to come to terms. I don't know if Dustin fights again. Right. And if he does fight again, I don't think it's against Colby Covington. For one, I don't think that's a good matchup for Dustin.
No, I agree.
Especially for a debut at 170. I mean, that's just asking a lot. And again, it's is the pay going to be really worth prepping your body for to move up? And again, all the heat that he's going to have to take from Colby. I mean, look at what Colby said. I think I didn't hear it at first, but I had to be kind of told after the fact. I mean, he called his wife a Jezebel. He said his daughter was Conor McGregor's. I mean,
Yeah.
look, we understand the fight game when it comes to the shit talk. Like, there's no line. People say there's a lot
Yes,
of
they
mean
do.
things said, but you never like to hear a family get brought in. It just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't sit well. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great look, but I also don't think the fight's going to happen. But I respect where his head's at there in terms of trying to think two steps ahead. I guess we'll have to see. But do you feel any differently? Do you think that fight's a possibility in the future?
I don't, man. I mean, really, we were kind of on the same boat. We still are here today, and I don't know. And if it doesn't happen, you're right. Colby's in a weird spot because he can beat everyone else seemingly, but he's already lost to the champion twice, so he's holding that number one spot. But it's like, essentially, he's gatekeeping a title shot. You know, if you beat me, you can probably fight Kamaru. I said in the group chat last night that I think if Hamzat beats Gilbert, I think that's a phenomenal fight to
Well,
make. I
what
know
if
you.
Gilbert beats Hamzat? Isn't that still a phenomenal fight?
True, yeah. I guess I should just say the winner of Gilbert and Hamzat.
I'm more so. I just wanted to make sure you were thinking that.
I guess I say Colby Hamzat because in terms of just the gratitude, that's not the word I'm looking
the
for.
levity,
The magnitude.
Yeah,
I don't know why I got those
yeah.
confused.
I get
The
what you're saying.
magnitude of Covington Hamzat is a lot bigger than a Covington versus Burns. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that's why I automatically go to Hamzat. But yeah, him versus the winner of that fight makes sense. I know you kind of gave your thoughts, and I'll let you tell everyone how you feel about that idea. But for me, that's what I see happening. So a little bit of time off. Maybe Colby gets the winner of that a little bit later this year.
If Hamzat beats Gilbert Burns and he has to fight Colby Covington next, I think that's a shame. I think
Yeah.
the UFC would be pissing away a gold mine opportunity to put a guy who deserves it into a title fight, and I don't think they're going to miss that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You put Hamzat, who would have at that point beat Gilbert Burns, one of the most hyped prospects you've ever had, who has shot his way up, and let's say he defeats Gilbert Burns in emphatic fashion,
Right.
has done it without even breaking a sweat. Then you put him up against a guy who's lost two times to the champion and risk, losing like your one true contender for the belt. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I do think if Gilbert Burns wins, there's a argument to be made. For me, I think Gilbert would still. I think you give Gilbert another shot at the title at that point. But more than likely, he probably would get put up with someone like Colby Covington after that, and that still could be a pretty big fight, especially if you get Gilbert Burns coming off a win over Hamzat. I mean, that's a definitely elevated fight at that point. But for Colby, I think it's just going to take some time. See how the field moves around
Right.
over the next few months. We may not see him again this year, honestly. He's never been the most active fighter, especially over the last couple years. He took that after that loss in the first fight against Usman. We didn't see him again until the following August, where he fought Tyron Woodley, and then it was a year and 2 months later before he fought Kamaru the second time.
Yeah.
And here he is, 6 months later, fighting Masvidal. I understand the Poirier fight. Maybe there is a chance for it. I don't think so, though.
Yeah. And really too, sorry, which is why we're on the topic of what next. You said it doesn't matter with the rest of the division, and I don't even think for Colby, but even the winner of that Burns and Chimaev fight, which we'll get more into next month. But you still have you have Bilal versus Vicente Luque happening again too. So I know that doesn't sound as intriguing as a title fight as Hamzat does, but it's just there are a lot of layers. Kamaru's saying he's going to fight in July and then go box in September. We don't even know what he's going to do. It's just the division. It's in a good state where there are fresh matchups coming, but it's still in a very weird state because you do still have two guys at the top that are beating everybody and all this other crap. So
yeah. Now for Jorge Masvidal, the loser of this matchup, this is 3 losses in a row now, Dominic. What do you think could be next for him?
That's that you want to talk about a tough question. I think it's that right there. He just signs this new lucrative deal. He's one of the top 5 highest paid fighters in
Makes
the
him
MMA.
I just love how each week it's when Israel signed, he was the second highest paid fighter in the
Yeah.
UFC, and now Jorge Masvidal is the third highest paid fighter in the UFC. I'm like, where are you guys getting these numbers from? Is this just an assumption? I don't know.
I know, right? But you know, you can look at it from one side of the spectrum and say, okay, he's lost 3 in a row, but it was twice to Kamaru and then Colby, the 2 best guys in the division. So you have that sentiment. But then it's also like, but what has he showed in general in those 2 fights outside of maybe a moment or two? Like in the first Kamaru fight, he landed some good body kicks, made him a little bit scared. Second fight, he got knocked out. Colby, he gets dominated for 5 rounds outside of 1 minute in the fourth. So, and he's so big that he's not just going to fight other contenders and like work his way to a title fight. Like I don't envision a world where we see that from Jorge Masvidal. So when you ask me what's next for him, no, I don't know if I even have a genuine answer for you, if I'm being honest.
Now's the only time this fight will ever make sense. It's time for the Conor McGregor fight.
I saw Damon Martin tweet that, and I can't say I hated it.
It's time for the Conor McGregor fight. I understand. I was not big on that fight ever happening. I felt Jorge was just way too big for Conor. Just maybe too powerful. It was just a big difference in what the opponents Conor has fought up to that point.
Yeah.
But now you have a guy on a 3-fight losing streak who's still a big star in Jorge Masvidal. Then you have Conor, who's lost back-to-back fights, but he looks huge right now.
He's very big.
In his coming off of his leg injury that he's trying to heal up and get ready to fight again. I remember we had someone comment on one of our videos saying that they didn't think that he's ever going to be able to fight at lightweight again, and I don't think I'm not necessarily going that extreme. Mm-hmm. I do think there's a really good chance that his comeback fight's going to be at welterweight, just because I think he's going to be really. I mean, he looks huge as.
I could see that for sure.
So now's the time. If there's ever been a time, now's the time for Conor Jorge, and it's going to be kind of weird because both guys aren't exactly in the best places in their professional careers, but to me, that's still the biggest fight that can be made in the entire company, and like now would be the only appropriate time to do it. There's nothing Jorge has left to do. Conor, yes, has like a Nate Diaz trilogy. There's potential for a Max Holloway rematch and all this stuff, a Tony Ferguson fight or a fourth Dustin fight, whatever. But especially if Nate and Dustin fight, that's going to leave Conor perhaps. I think he's not coming back till the fall at the earliest. I mean, everybody's been talking about July and stuff. I know he said that, but it's just not. No.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have your body ready, but then to try to get a Conor McGregor fight negotiated and work through all the details. I mean, it's like that's a marathon in itself. So I think him and Jorge would make a lot of sense to headline that Madison Square Garden card to end the year in November. I think that's you get a little bit of like Conor 2016 when he went in the first show at Madison Square Garden, knocked out Eddie Alvarez for the second belt. Here he is 5 years later, or 6 years later, I guess at that point, headlining with Jorge Masvidal. Be a huge fight.
Yeah, I can't say it doesn't make sense. And at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about when guys do essentially get to this level. There's only so much you can do with them. You know what I mean? And Jorge has, again, he's not on Conor's level because no one's on Conor's level, but he's as close as you can be to it. Therefore, you don't fight contenders. You don't go fight Wonderboy Thompson and Bilal Muhammad and all these guys. He's too big for those types of fights. That's why this one with Colby did make sense, because Colby was at least closer to him in status. But now there's no one else for him. So I take some time off. I agree with you. I think I never thought I'd say it, but Jorge Masvidal, Conor McGregor looks as realistic as ever, and I think that would obviously draw plenty of eyeballs to the UFC. So we'll see what happens, man. It's a weird spot to be in for both guys, even more so for Jorge Masvidal.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the co-main event now, as Rafael Dos Anjos defeats his short notice replacement in Renato Moicano via unanimous decision. This was a 5-round fight. Mm-hmm. Probably didn't need to be. I think after the fight played out, I don't think we really needed 5 rounds. However, I mean, I say that, but Renato had some. I mean, this was a weird fight. Let's to call it, to be truthfully honest. Like I this might be a fight that I even need to go rewatch at some point because
Yeah.
honestly, it's for majority of it very not a lot's going on. I mean, RDA looked fantastic here, by the way. The timing of his shots was great. His takedowns were phenomenal. He was getting a lot of top control, a lot of just great ground and pound. And that's what the majority of the fight was. It was takedown, top control, some ground and pound, some elbows. But Renato's face was butchered by what, the end of round 3.
Yeah, the eye
And
especially was bad.
yeah, the eye was looking rough. There was a lot of questions on if the referee Mark Goddard should step in and stop it, if the corner should save their fighter. It just kind of got worse in rounds 4 and 5, but then Renato Moicano had these moments. Like round 5, he started landing. So I mean, I think RDA was pretty happy that there wasn't a round 6 to that fight because
Yeah.
Renato came on strong at the very end of the fight. As crazy as that sounds, so I guess to start this discussion off, I want to get your thoughts on the performances of these two as a whole. Um, Again, maybe I should just ask you the same question I did for the main event fight. Was there anything about this fight that kind of surprised you? Did either guy bring something to the table or not that you were expecting them to or weren't expecting them to? And maybe you can even touch on the fact that the fight didn't get stopped. Should it have been stopped? And I'll let you just kind of go from there.
So RDA did look phenomenal. He did, especially we hadn't seen him in a very long time, so it was good to see him still look fresh, uh, start to finish, outside of moments in the 5th. But overall, I guess it would have went how you expected, at least for how RDA's wins typically go. Moicano, I didn't know how much to expect from Moicano with all the circumstances coming in, the weight cut, the 5 days, the traveling, the 5 rounds. It just no positives in terms of the matchup. Did it look good for Moicano here? But his toughness, I think he got to showcase that to a ton of people in a big spot. His grittiness, and sometimes that's just they're too tough for their own good. A lot of people pass that phrase around a lot. I know Dana even did at the post-fight presser. Personally, I thought Mark Goddard handled it amazing, if I'm being honest. He took all of the doctor's advice throughout the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. He straight up looked at Moicano in the face in the 5th and said, "You have 30 seconds to prove to me that I shouldn't stop this fight, essentially, or I will stop it." And Moicano comes out and wins the round on 2 judges' scorecards. So I thought, in terms of Goddard, he did everything you could ask him to do. In that moment, if it looks that bad, I think it comes down to the corner. We've talked about corner stoppages a little bit on this show in the past and how we feel, or at least I should say because I don't remember how in depth we went conversation wise. But I feel that we should see corner stoppages more. I don't think there's any shame in a corner throwing in the towel to save their fighter. But obviously they didn't choose to do that. The doctor checked it out. Moicano was still following his finger and everything. Goddard gave him that ultimatum, and Moicano went out there and won the 5th round. So overall, it got ugly, but I think in terms of how it went, I would put it more so on the corner for not stopping the fight than anyone else. But other than that, I mean, RDA looked great. Moicano showed his heart. That's what it was for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have any differing thoughts. I feel like our views line up there pretty good. I mean, RDA looked phenomenal. Shout out to Renato Moicano for still stepping up, being a game opponent.
Yeah, stock rose.
Again, you know that the odds were what they were, and I think a lot of people weren't. I don't know if there was so much credit being given to Moicano or not enough credit being given to RDA. I still haven't really figured that out in my head because I'm still so shocked that as good as Renato Moicano is and has looked recently, this is a big jump up compared to who he's been beating.
Yes.
And you're taking it on 5-day notice, 5 rounds against a guy. And I know it's a tough thing for RDA to do. He said so much in the post-fight interview in the cage. He said, it's hard for me too to take this fight. And I agree with him because he's preparing for a Muay Thai striker in Fiziev, and instead he has to fight Moicano, who's a jiu-jitsu specialist. It's just a different style altogether. But despite that, RDA looked phenomenal. He did look like the guy who had been in a fight camp preparing. The timing was there. And he's just so good in general. So in terms of the whole stoppage thing, to me, the whole, I've never seen a ref do, you got 30 seconds to turn this fight around or I'm stopping it. But, it really didn't come into play because the first 30 seconds, pretty much nothing happened. And he just still let the fight go on. So I guess, you're right that Moicano probably won the round, I guess. I guess 2 judges gave it to him, but was it really worth it? I don't know. I feel like I'm not blaming Mark Goddard because there were when that head kick landed and he kind of dropped and he was very wobbled and RDA was kind of pummeling him on the ground. I was kind of like, dude, you can step in.
I would have been okay if he stopped.
So I'm not blaming Mark Goddard, but I'm just saying there were opportunities to stop that fight before the start of the 5th round. That fight could have been stopped early in round 4 and would have saved him a lot of damage that really he didn't need to take. Because again, he did his job. He showed up 5 days notice. He was on weight. He was a game opponent, but he's getting pummeled here. And he's not going to win. So to me, it's more about keeping him in a decent condition for a future fight that will elevate his stock. Because I actually don't think this fight really did anything for him, Dom. If I'm being honest, and that's just because, and that's not a slight on him. That's just how fans are going to react to this. The conversation wasn't really about Moicano being a late replacement, stepping up. Moicano really wasn't. It didn't seem like once that fight went the way it did, the beating he took, it was less about the discussion anyways, about Moicano being this late replacement opponent that was just out, didn't have time to prepare for this fight, but more it was about that he was outmatched. And maybe that's true, but that doesn't do anything for him in his stock. It doesn't raise it. Yeah, he showed a lot of heart, but he was getting pummeled here. And he had the moments late. But to me, when we look at a fight like this or Bobby Green last week against Islam Makhachev, that Bobby Green that was great for him. He got in there and got beat inside a round, didn't have to take much damage, got paid a lot of money for it. And, people just respected him stepping up. So then he'll get, the UFC probably respected it. So they'll probably get him a good matchup next. There's a part of that here. But look at how much more damage he had to take, Moicano that is, to get to that point. It's to me, he didn't gain anything. He didn't gain more than Bobby Green did. But look at how much more damage he took.
Yeah.
So the corner, it's really on them. What are we doing here? I get it. I'm not really in that world. We've never really done it. So we don't get it, I guess. But, you're looking at your fighter who has shown you basically, I get it. Round 5, he ends up winning. So maybe in hindsight, this is all for naught. But through 4 rounds, he had shown you basically nothing. Really had nothing left. And you're still going to send him out there? I don't know. I guess that's their decision, but probably wouldn't be the decision I would want to make in that situation.
Yeah, again, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of if a corner throws in the towel,
Yeah. Now, to kind of, I guess, get to a brighter side of this fight here, I want to talk about RDA for a second. How close is he to being a title challenger in your eyes at this point? He's ranked number 6.
Yeah, he's there. He's close. I still think they should do him. I think they should still do Rafael squared. I think that's a really good fight still. Um, I'd say 2 wins. I think if he could beat
See,
Fiziev and one more, yeah, I think he's right there. And it's
so
weird. The division's weird, but
I don't think that fight probably should happen at this point. To me, and I know Dana is already kind of. To me, Islam Makhachev should be waiting for the next title shot.
mm-hmm.
I think you do Beneil Dariush RDA. That's what I think.
Beneil and RDA.
And I think that would be a pretty. I mean, it's hard to say when would it take place, but I think that could be a number one contender fight. I really do.
I definitely would love that fight, but Dana seems to like they want to. I don't want to say punish, but I'm going to punish Islam for not taking this fight. So he's like, well, we're just going to rebook that one. But if they don't do that and Islam does get the title fight, I think that is like the second fight to make. RDA.
I think
Beneil.
Rafael Dos Anjos should be one fight away from a title fight. And
One fight away.
A win over Fiziev isn't really going to do that for him. It's a great fight. I think RDA showed here that he has a lot of weapons that he could use. I don't think that, even though Fiziev will probably be favored in that matchup, I don't think it's as one-sided as maybe some people think. I mean,
No.
consider how many fights RDA has in the UFC, Dominic, and the wars he's been in and the high-level opponents he's fought. The man's never been dropped. I mean, even in his loss to Eddie Alvarez, he never went down.
Yeah, he was on the feet, wasn't he? Well, I know he became the 10th fighter ever to have 20 wins last night. Yeah. So his whole resume, like they talked about how good his strength of schedule is, but if you look at just RDA in general, his career came into the UFC in 2008, by the way, still underrated, if I'm being honest. And he is so he really is good everywhere. So he is still a puzzle for whether he's fighting young guys in this division like Fiziev or he's fighting another veteran in Dariush. But he's an interesting fighter. He's 36 or 37, but there's gas in the tank, Noah. He looks good.
Yeah, and we'll see what really transpires. Is Islam and Beneil going to end up getting booked again? When's Beneil going to be ready? I guess he's not going to go with surgery, which we'll see. I don't know if that's the best choice, but we'll see how that goes. And for RDA, though, maybe they do put him back with Fiziev. Like I think we're a little further apart on where we think he stands right now. But for me, he was game here. He obviously if he would have beat Fiziev here, this would have been more of a statement probably. Yeah. But I just think considering he's the inactivity definitely hurt having that 16 months of no fights. But I think if he could get a matchup with Beneil Dariush, that would be such a great fight, a 5-round headliner. I mean, that is a great fight. And Islam should be waiting for the title shot. That's just how I feel right now.
See, that's the thing. I agree with it. It's just a matter of
that's what you think. You're thinking that's what will happen probably is him Fiziev gets rebooked.
Right.
2 fights away.
Yeah. But what you say I actually like more. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I think if I'm thinking realistically, I don't know if him and Fiziev happens again. I really don't. I think RDA has his sights set on Islam now, to be honest with you.
Let's say this real quick. Let's say they don't do the Rafael squared, but they do rebook Islam and Beneil. Then what do you do with RDA?
That's a great question because it looks like Michael Chandler's about to get booked with Tony Ferguson. Mm-hmm. And then once again, RDA is kind of in no man's land. It's a bit like Colby Covington we just talked about. So then at that point, you probably do Fiziev. I mean, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a good chance that what you said is really how it's going to play out. But it's just, to me, not the best use of everybody right now. The way the UFC is kind of putting their chess pieces together. I'm kind of like, ooh, why is Islam having to fight again? Like, I'm not exactly feeling that. But it is what it is right now. We'll see how it plays out, as the words of Dana White. And for RDA, I definitely think he's still one of the best in the division.
Yes, for sure.
Following that, Dominic, we got to look at Bryce Mitchell, who gets his first top 15 win against the number 10 Edson Barboza in a dominant, unanimous decision fashion.
Mm.
Thug Nasty, he came in, he dropped Barboza on the feet.
Yeah.
He was hellacious with his takedowns. He was dominant with his top control. He landed some really good strikes from the top. Not the most exciting fight in the world, but truly a showcase for Bryce Mitchell, Dominic. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was. It was very much so a showcase for him. He looked so good from start to finish. I had my doubts. I did. I thought the long layoff
Well, we
paired with
both did. Yeah,
yeah,
we both did.
the long layoff paired with the elite striking of Barboza. I felt that if Edson could keep this fight on the feet, which he obviously could in hindsight, but if he could moving in, I thought Bryce was in for a long night. But not only was Bryce able to get those takedowns and dominate on the ground, but on the feet, he's showing more and more competence with each fight. He showed it against Andre Fili, impressive. But to show it against Edson Barboza, that's next level, and you said he dropped him with the left, very fast, very crisp, very powerful. What a performance from Bryce. One that, after a long layoff, really what a way to make a splash back into the featherweight division. He's going to be top 10 now. And what more can I say? He did everything you could have wanted to see from him and more. I think he answered questions. I think he answered questions that weren't even thought of yet. That's how good this performance was. It was a dominant from start to finish. Thug Nasty looking like a legitimate threat here, Noah, and a potential title contender down the road.
That's true. That's all true. And man, when Edson Barboza loses, he loses.
Yeah, he does.
And that's kind of the perfect, I guess, opponent for Bryce Mitchell then, because when Bryce Mitchell's looking for this big opponent that he can get that showcase for, here, like, it's a bit like, when I was talking about the Kevin Holland, Alex Oliveira, the showcase matchup. That's sort of what this was, but I didn't see it that way going in. That's why I'm okay with it, because I felt like Edson Barboza had a lot of weapons on the feet that could really, and I felt since he was down from lightweight, I didn't think it'd be as easy for the grapplers of this division to take him down like he did at lightweight. But Bryce Mitchell, man, I mean, that's the second probably worst beating Edson took behind Khabib Nurmagomedov at lightweight. That's really where we're at with that. So it was a great showcase for Bryce Mitchell, a great first win in the top 15. He's going to be top 10 now. I pitched to you guys in the group chat a 5-round headliner with Giga Chikadze, and I don't think I'm down with the 5-round part, but I think the matchup I still like. And here's why. I don't think that fight needs to be 5 rounds, because I think we'll get our answer on how that matchup's going to go outside of like a round and a half.
Yeah, that's
because
a good point.
It's a bit like this fight with Edson Barboza. Their styles clash so much, but Giga proved to be better than Barboza. So you get that matchup. If Bryce is able to get his takedowns, he's going to gas Giga. He's going to be able to hold that top control, probably inflict a lot of damage from the top. But if Giga can keep that fight standing, I think he's got the weapons to really do some damage to Bryce. The Giga kick, doing the body work. Edson was doing that a lot here. I mean, Bryce's body was open for it. But I just don't think that needs to be 5 rounds, because I think we'll get our answer outside of a round and a half. So I think that's the next matchup. Chikadze coming off a very tough but gutsy loss against Calvin Kattar to start our year. I don't know when he'll be ready to go, but I think it's the proper step back, and it's for a matchup between two of the division's brightest and best of the future.
Yeah, I love that fight. I love your sentiment on how you feel it doesn't need to be 5, but I feel like the UFC is going to give Mitchell a headline spot in his next fight.
Really? You think so?
I do. I think they like this kid. I think the fans like this kid. He did a lot for himself in the post-fight, I believe. And I was actually talking to our buddies last night when we were watching it. I had to pull up the division, the rankings, who's booked. And, he's not going to get Max, right? Ortega's going to fight Yair. Volk's fighting Korean Zombie. And Arnold Allen is fighting in 2 weeks. So for me, it is Bryce versus Giga, Bryce versus Josh Emmett, or Bryce versus Calvin Kattar. And I think either one of those three, by the way, all three of those guys, dangerous strikers. Bryce Mitchell, the grappler, the submission specialist, the threat on the ground. So they're all kind of the same storyline. It's just a matter of, okay, which one do we want to do here? But I think either way, I think Thug Nasty's going to get 5 rounds. No, I agree with you. We will know how the fight will play out within a round and a half or two. But I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to get the headline spot. Probably not in Arkansas, like I jokingly said, but still, I think he's going to do it. There's big fights ahead. And again, like I said, he showed me that he can be a title threat in the next couple of years.
Well said. Finally, for this main card that was just filled with headline takeaways here, Kevin Holland in his debut in the welterweight division does get the TKO over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Comes in round 2, 38 seconds in. But, Dominic, it didn't come easy. Round 1 that Kevin Holland arguably lost. Alex Oliveira looked very good early here. But
yeah.
What was any big takeaways here in Kevin Holland's debut at welterweight?
It was when he did the thumbs up when he was in the rear naked choke to finish the first round. That was so funny. But overall, he looked great. I was super excited to see what he looked like physically, how he performed, yada, 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 at 170 pounds. And he checked a lot of boxes. He did face adversity. And I think that was more so because Alex Oliveira just came out wanting to throw out all the stops. You know, he's been on a losing streak. He's lost like 6 out of 8. So he's at that tail end, I feel, in his UFC career, even though he's been through a lot of tough competition. So he just came out and went for it, man. And I respect the hell out of him for that. But for Holland to survive those threats, still win the first round, yeah, I think he won the first round. I think so. But then in the second, he gets the stoppage in 38 seconds. He looked great. He's very fast. He's very powerful. And he's still a super well-rounded fighter. We just, when he finishes people in the UFC specifically or wins in general, we typically see it on the feet. But I think he showed he's ready to hop right into those welterweight rankings. I don't think he's going to be ranked, but I think he's going to get a welterweight top 15 next, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think this is a good debut for Kevin Holland. You get the finish over a tested opponent, but obviously one who was past his prime at this point. So it checked the box. He did have that. I will say the call out was nice, even though I didn't love who it was for. He said, I took out one Cowboy. Don't make me call out another. And, you know, we had just saw Cowboy Cerrone was sitting side by side with Zach Brown from the Zach Brown band, who the UFC posted a video of where he said he was excited to see Oliveira. Who? Ain't no Oliveira on this card.
Or was he talking about Alex Oliveira?
Oh, yeah, I guess there was an Oliveira on this card. There's an Oliveira in this fight.
Anyway.
But I digress. Kevin Holland. So, a good debut. He did have to go through some adversity. I mean, Alex Oliveira was getting the better of almost every exchange they had in round 1. It was kind of surprising. Like, I was kind of sitting there like, Alex Oliveira might be game here. I mean, this might be a more... Again, I told you in our green room session we had that even though I put money on Kevin Holland by KO TKO, and I probably still would have even at that point Thursday or Friday whenever we did that green room, I started to become more toward the center. Like at first I was like, oh, this is Kevin Holland like 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
But I started to become more neutral in that fight as the week went on. I started to realize like Kevin Holland's still pretty untested and, you know, has had those holes and is not the most highest of IQ fighters, just kind of goes in there and flows and just kind of puts on a show for the fans, which is great, but it doesn't always lead to wins. And Alex Oliveira is kind of like that as well, but I would say a more technical version of that, a more skilled version of that, more well-rounded version of that, I guess. But Kevin Holland, the length, the size was definitely an advantage here. And he finally, in round 2, used it. I feel like round 1, he wasn't really using his reach very much. And once he finally did, I felt like it was pretty smooth sailing. So he said in interview afterwards that he took back his call out of Donald Cerrone, said he really wants to fight Daniel Rodriguez next. Dominic, that is a perfect matchup next for those two, I think.
Yeah, it is perfect. That would be such a good fight. Two guys on the feet, they're gonna go tit for tat. Both are long, rangy, technical, but a little bit crazy. I mean, that's a fantastic fight. I know neither guy have a ranking in the welterweight division, but both I feel like could be top 15 guys easily. I still don't understand why Daniel Rodriguez isn't ranked. That kind of annoys me.
He was for like a week.
Yeah, I don't know. He's literally one of the most underrated talents probably in that division right now, but that is a sick fight and one that you're not going to hear me complain about whatsoever.
I just love that you just said that you thought Kevin Holland would be the top 15 next, and you're like, oh, I love that fight. Like,
yeah. Yeah. I was like, wait, Noah sent me a DM, and it was Daniel Rodriguez. I'm like, yep, scratch that. We're going D-Rod.
More to come with UFC 272, but we do have to talk about something that was announced during the broadcast of UFC 272. The 2022 UFC Hall of Fame always gets announced, or usually gets announced, I guess, pre-COVID during International Fight Week, which I believe they're going back to this year.
Yeah.
So back to some sense of normalcy in that schedule. And the Hall of Fame class gets its headliner, Dom. Former UFC lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to get inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. So, were you surprised at all? I mean, again, I think it's a pretty inevitable induction, but considering he just retired in October of 2020, that he's getting inducted here, were you surprised?
No, not at all. This has got to be... So this Hall of Fame's weird because they have like, this is the modern wing that he's going in. They have the fight wing and then like the, Pioneer wing.
Yeah.
So for Khabib, like you said, just retired in October. Is this the quickest we've seen the UFC put someone in the Hall of Fame as an actual like fighter themselves? Because like obviously John Jones is still an active fighter, but they put his fight with Gustafsson in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Right. Like, so as an individual to retire that quickly and then already get put in, I think it's got to be.
I mean, there's guys in there who were still fighting Randy Couture was inducted and he was still fighting. I think.
Oh, okay. That's basically the answers I was looking for. Then.
I think. So, or at least he because Randy at that time he retired, came back, fought a heavyweight, had the amazing run. When he defeated Tim Sylvia and Gabriel Gonzaga, I believe somewhere in there he retired, got inducted, then unretired, fought it more, and So I think it's happened, but it's definitely, it just feels, considering again, I've only been watching in the capacity I've been watching for the last 6 years or so. I'm so used to the team sports dynamic for Hall of Fames where usually you're out for like 5 years before you can get inducted.
Right.
So to see Khabib get inducted here, I was a bit surprised.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's what I went into the other room to talk to my sister. So I missed the promo video. I came back in and everybody said, Khabib's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm like, huh? What? I was gone for 2 minutes. I missed the whole thing. But the promotional piece was good. I think it says a lot about his legacy and how the UFC, specifically even like Dana White himself, feels about Khabib. It's a great honor for him. He's done a lot for the sport. And he's been a great ambassador. He's now, going to be the head of Eagle FC and promote his own fight. So it's a big deal for him. It's a prestigious honor. And again, a quick turnaround for him. But when it's Khabib, I think it makes sense. I hope he wears the headpiece on stage, by the way.
Yeah, you could tell he really thought it was prestigious when he looked pissed.
How did he react?
Oh, he was pissed because he's still mad about
Tagir.
Yeah, Tagir. He's still mad at Tim Elliott.
Yeah,
so, I don't know how much fighters really value the UFC Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a bit of like it's a bit of a buddy system there. I mean, there's certain guys that should get in that won't. I mean, why isn't Anderson Silva in? If
True.
Like, I understand he's still fighting, but he's boxing and stuff. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like Khabib deserves it. Best lightweight of all time in the UFC, and maybe just ever. I don't know, but like when he gets in and like Anderson Silva still isn't in, it's just like so weird to me sometimes.
Yeah,
So the UFC Hall of
true.
Fame's a bit of a mess, but it's all we have right now. So until there's an MMA Hall of Fame,
Until we start ours. Yeah, right.
Exactly. But moving on from there, let's get into the rest because there was a lot going on this card, Dominic, and it starts with our opener of the main card, Sergey Spivak, who I still haven't figured out the proper way to spell his name. The UFC have it Serghei, but then I see it on Wikipedia and on like Twitter, people posting it's Sergey.
Yeah. Yeah, I just went with what they put on the TV last night.
I hear you. That's the way to go. But he gets the TKO over Greg Hardy. Minute 16 seconds of round number 1. Cha-ching, under 1.5 rounds.
Oh yeah,
Thank you
I
very
forgot.
much. But Dominic, does this mark the end of the Greg Hardy experiment in the UFC?
One would think so. We kind of chatted about this in our group chat as well. I just feel like what is there to gain from this at this point? Like at first, it was already a weird look for the UFC to bring him in, given his past, and then he was on the Contender. They gave him the developmental deal. He looked good. He was knocking people out, right? So there was hype there still. Former NFL Pro Bowler, it was a big deal. But then meh. It's just all been meh. And now he's lost 3 in a row. He's been stopped 3 times in a row. It was the last fight on his contract. So if it's going to be the end, it probably makes sense to have it end now. So if I'm being honest with you, I don't think we'll see Greg Hardy back in the UFC octagon. I know you may have differing thoughts, and I'll let you share.
Oh, I think that's definitely probably the end. Look, I said what I said. I stand by Greg Hardy as a UFC caliber heavyweight in terms of what he can do on the feet. But the rest of his game is so green and just undeveloped at this point, and he's also just mentally the IQ. I'm not sure fight IQ wise where that's not very strong either. This is the man who took an inhaler in between rounds at one point. So it's definitely the end, I would say. But like again, the heavyweight division's not the deepest. I mean, you look at some of these guys that get put on some of these cards, they don't last very long, which is why Greg Hardy probably shouldn't have been fighting on the platform that he was given. He shouldn't be on these pay-per-view main cards and what have you. But in terms of like, is he a UFC caliber heavyweight? I was like, I mean, he's beat guys that were in the UFC, and yes, most of those guys I don't think are even around anymore. But that's why Greg Hardy, it ran its course. It had its moments. The fight with Volkov, he took on short notice. He went all 3 rounds, lost, but that was the best showing of his career.
I was going to say the same thing.
From there, it just kind of went backwards a little bit. Yeah. So, Greg Hardy, I'm sure he can continue this if he wants to elsewhere. Maybe Bellator comes calling. I don't know. Yeah. But if not, I mean, if that's the end for him in MMA, then, blink and you miss it, I guess, in terms of the history.
Yeah.
Jalen Turner, the Tarantula. He gets the TKO over Jamie Malarkey round 2, 47 seconds in. This one wasn't even very close, Dominic. Jalen Turner put a beating on Malarkey, who, to his credit, can take a punch.
Yeah, Jalen Turner's putting it all together right now, man. He is. He started his UFC career rocky, 0-2. I think he even got finished in 1 or maybe even both. But since he's tallied off 4 straight wins, all 4 via finish, and he's looked literally. I love when you can watch a fighter go out, especially these younger guys. In each fight, you can literally tell the improvements they're making. We can see that clearly here with Jalen Turner. I mean, he just came off 2 of his last 3 were by submission. The guy only had 1 submission ever before coming into the UFC. So, and then he gets a dominant finish here over Jamie Malarkey via TKO. He looks so powerful. He's so long and rangy for 155 pounds. This dude, 12-5 record doesn't do it justice because right now he's entering into his prime and he's absolutely on a tear. This boy is going to cause problems.
He is a tough matchup too because he's so lanky, so tall, and so skilled. He's got power in the hands, but he's got great submissions as well. think that there's some real potential here with Jalen Turner, and we'll see how
Yes.
far that goes. But Jamie Malarkey, better days ahead, I believe, too. I think we didn't really get to see much of him here because it was just, man, I mean, I really think this fight said more about Jalen Turner because this felt like a very even fight when it
Yes.
was being booked, but it didn't come off that way once it, took place. And Jalen Turner might be ready for top 15. I mean, that's just where I'm at with it.
I'm down with that too.
It's tough though. It's lightweight, right? This is lightweight
Yeah.
division, so I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he's knocking on the door there.
Yeah.
Marina Rodriguez and Yan Xiaonan went to a split decision where Marina Rodriguez comes out on the winning side. Very close fight, very competitive fight. This obviously should have been on the main card. One of the better fights of the night, I thought.
Yeah, it was a great fight.
Xiaonan looked really good early here. She looked like she was much faster than Marina. Her hand speed was faster. But the problem was that she couldn't really keep that up for 3 rounds. She just started to slow down just a little bit. And that difference was where in round 1 she was able to pretty much get in the pocket, throw some really clean combinations, and then get out without getting touched. Once rounds 2 and rounds 3 came into play, she wasn't able to evade those shots and land those shots as cleanly as she did in round 1. So Marina Rodriguez gets the win, and obviously been the story of her career with these close fights, draws, split decisions, what ends up happening here. I scored it for Marina Rodriguez. I did have a betting bias, though. I had her via decision on one of my parlays. Dominic did as well, so probably doesn't matter what we scored it, but I think both come out looking really good here.
Yeah, I agree. This was a really good fight. We knew it was going to be 3 rounds on the feet, back and forth, high level, and that's what it was for 15 minutes. Marina looked great. She made good adjustments, I felt, and Yan Xiaonan did slow down. And if you slow down against Marina, she's not going to stop, man. She's so good at picking you apart from range. She's got the Muay Thai clinch knees, and she's powerful. She'll swing big, heavy hooks. I mean, she knocked out Amanda Hebos just last year, so she's won 4 in a row. I know it was a split decision, but to me, adding that to the win streak you're already on still is a title earning performance to me. So now I just need Rose and Carla to be booked so I know kind of the timeline we're dealing with, Noah.
I agree. I felt like Marina Rodriguez had a resume that didn't require another fight before this one, and here she gets a win. It was close, but Zhao Nan is a great opponent, a high-level opponent. So we'll see Rose versus Carla hopefully this summer, maybe August, September or something, and then we can plan on maybe end of the year or beginning of next year, Marina Rodriguez taking on the winner of that fight. And for Zhao Nan, I mean, I really thought she showed a lot more here than I was expecting. I mean, again, I said I felt like I was underestimating her because she looked pretty unremarkable against Carla Esparza. She got beaten up. And, as much as that's said about Carla, I think a part of it affected how I viewed Zhao Nan as well. But here I thought that this was what I needed to see from her to, like, kind of get her back in my mind as, like, a top 5 level strawweight right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Marina Moroz got the submission over Maria Agapova in the other grudge match on the card. Moroz gets that submission in round 2, 3 minutes, 27 seconds. Dominic, this was a fight that you were very invested in. How did it transpire the way you imagined?
Well, the actual investment did not pay off, no. But hey, it was a fun fight, and honestly, I was high on Agapova, but now she's, I think, 3-2 in the UFC, and when she loses, much like Edson Barboza, she gets destroyed. And that's what happened here. She did not look good really at all. She did reverse position in round 1 and kind of end on top. But for the most part, it was all Moroz here from start to finish. A great performance. She had been off for like 2 years. So to come in against a young up-and-comer like this, I felt it was just not a good matchup for her. But boy, was I wrong, because not only is she known to be this great striker, but her grappling was just levels above Agapova in this one. She got the submission, made it look easy. Her ground and pound was vicious and nasty. Great performance, man. She got the performance of the night to cap it off. It was awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought this would be a more competitive bout for sure.
Yeah.
But man, Morose, and I started to lean Morose's way. She's Ukrainian. She obviously had a lot going. There's a lot going on in the Ukraine right now, and she was very emotional afterwards. But
Yeah.
I felt like there was going to be some added motivation, not just for the fact that she's going up against like someone that she despises,
Yeah.
but also the fact that her country is being invaded as we speak, and her family and stuff are over there. So a very heartfelt win for her. My heart went out to her when she was talking afterwards, and I mean it was a great moment for sure.
Yeah, man.
Umar Nurmagomedov. Basically, guys, if you see a Maidov or Nurmagomedov
Run.
If you see that neck beard, see it. Yeah, it's that that like little song or sound where it's like
run.
Yes. That's what this is.
Yes, exactly.
Umar Nurmagomedov gets a submission over Brian Kelleher in the first round, 3 minutes 15 seconds in. I mean, it copy paste. We talked about Said Nurmagomedov. We talked about Islam Makhachev. Copy paste. Yeah. I mean, this is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Said Nurmagomedov is going to be a great title fight one day. And it's this is this bantamweight? Is this bantamweight division?
Well, the fight took place at 145, but yes, he's a bantamweight typically.
I'm pretty sure Said's a bantamweight as well, so that's going to be a great title fight one day when those two take on one another.
I can't say you're wrong, Noah, because that a problem. To go out there and do this to Brian Kelleher, people don't do that to Brian. They just don't. He's a tough out for anyone, and he made it look so easy. I remember texting and saying so quick or like so fast because he was on Keller's back, but Keller's been there before, he'll be okay. Boom, rear naked choke. Within seconds, he's tapping. I mean, what a performance. Nurmagomedov, headpiece, chin strap beard. He actually had a little bit of the goatee portion going, which not a lot of the others do.
Edgy.
Making him a little bit more dangerous. I mean, oh, man, that guy's a problem.
Yeah, I really nothing else to say there. Completely agree. It's all about just getting him booked against someone that's like top 15 or close to it.
He could easily get top 15 already, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'll admit that there is. I mean, it's true. Like you see someone with a Magomedov or Nurmagomedov or Makhachev or whatever. You see those last names, or you see the neck beard, the chin strap, and there is an inflated view of those guys at this point. But have they proved us wrong yet? Have they been wrong yet? Have they been wrong yet, Dom?
Next.
Anyways, Tim Elliott. Now, I guess, okay, well, saying that, but then the timing here.
Can we redo this?
The timing here, it could not be worse, because following that, Tahir Ulanbekov, who is out of Camp Khabib, lost in his fight with Tim Elliott via unanimous decision. Now, Tahir had an interesting run coming in here. He was 2-0, but I think you could have had an argument that he lost both fights. I mean, really, they were both very close, considering how much potential he had coming in. Maybe some of that inflated just because of who he trains with and surrounds himself with. But I think there's good reason to believe that because he's got the striking as well. But here he was going up against Tim Elliott, who's had a mixed run in the UFC, but he's had some really big highs and some big lows.
Yeah.
And it's always been about Tim Elliott. The consistency has just never really been there. Very awkward style. But a guy who's, he's been there, done that with Demetrius Johnson and people like that, the best of the division. And he got the win over Tahir Ulanbekov. And Dominic, it was probably my favorite fight of the whole card. It happened early.
Yeah.
I know a lot happened afterwards, so it was kind of hard to remember. But, I mean, it felt like this was the best Tim Elliott I've ever seen. And I might even go as far to say, Dominic, the fight ended up being closer, like, in the end. But for at least the first 2 rounds, that Tim Elliott might beat anybody outside the top 4 or 5 in that flyweight division. That Tim Elliott, I mean, he had an answer for everything. Tahir did. He was transitioning perfectly. He was stopping takedowns perfectly. He was looking great on the feet. Had that great left hand where it knocked him down in round 1. it was a beautiful first 2 rounds. Now, round 3, things got a little dicey. Ulanbekov got the back, got the body triangle, but all in all, a win for Tim Elliott. Probably the biggest win, maybe one of the biggest wins of his career.
Yeah, I agree. You really said it best. This was probably my personal fight of the night. It was so fun to watch, and you had everything you could see in a 3-round fight. I feel like happened. There were knockdowns, there was back and forth on the feet, there was clinch work, there was grappling, transitions, submission attempts, everything in a span of 15 minutes. Tim Elliott has just continued to become more herky jerky later in his career, but he's like not in a bad way. Like he performs clean at the same time. James Krause is in his corner, one of the best coaches in MMA right now. So what a performance to do this for Ulanbekov. That is still a tough fight. Like we talked about it even on the nosebleeds because Elliott was my dog of the week. I didn't place a bet on it, unfortunately, but here we are. But Ulanbekov, I still feel there's potential, just a little bit slower of a run to kind of push him in there. But I still think he's top 15 worthy. I still think his skill set's top 15. And he still showed a lot in a losing effort.
Yeah, I still think he needs more seasoning. I think that was clear even from the last 2 fights. I felt like, I mean, it's hard with flyweight because it's a lot different than the other men's divisions because there's just a lot less people on the roster. Yeah. But so top 15, like that's over half of the people on the roster, I'm pretty sure, of flyweight. So
yeah,
it's hard to say like, oh, it's a little too soon for him to be in the top 15. Maybe it's right, but I want to see him fight more this back half caliber and unranked caliber opponents because he has a lot of potential, but he's yet to put it all together. And I mean, he could easily be 0-3 right now. That's just the truth of the matter. So still think he's got a lot. But I got to talk about the cheating from Tim Elliott here.
Oh, the gloves, dude.
Yeah, so he was a sneaky little man in there, and Coach Khabib, none happy about it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, going off on who was the ref for that? Was that Mark? No, that was Tagnoni.
Yeah, I think it's so. Yeah.
Chris Tagnoni. I don't know how to say his last name. Chris Tagnoni.
I know that. I think they say Tagnoni. Yeah.
I believe that's who the ref was, and Khabib was going off. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it was cheating. I mean, it clearly was, but I mean,
well, you already know.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say Khabib is going to get more mad seeing that because Conor, if you guys remember, grabbed Khabib's glove and did kind of that same thing too. So, and what was also funny is that Michael Bisping was on commentary and he's cracking up like, well, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. He ain't getting caught. He's showing his veteran expertise. I'm like, Michael, you're advocating for cheating in the octagon here.
But it was pretty funny. All in all, it didn't really play into a finish, or it didn't switch the like, since it wasn't fight changing or fight ending. I'm gonna laugh about it, but I understand if people are like pissed off. If you were like a big Tahir fan and you're probably pissed that happened and there was nothing said, because it was pretty egregious. But I still couldn't help. I couldn't help but just love this fight watching it. So I mean, it had just kind of added to the character of the fight. Like, it was just, it just added to it a little bit. But Dominic, I think that's going to wrap it up for this weekend recap edition, all about UFC 272. So next week we got more coming at you.
A lot more, actually.
Oh, there's a ton. Wow, I'm just now looking.
Eagle FC.
Santos versus Ankalaev. You got Bellator 276. ONE FC. Thon Lee versus Gary Tonin. John Lineker versus Bobbiano Fernandez. Technically PFL Challenger Series, but obviously, as you can see here, well, I didn't talk about it today. So will I talk about it next week? I don't know. And then Eagle FC 46. Kevin Lee versus Diego Sanchez. So, a lot to talk about. So get ready, people, because we got a lot coming at you. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be jam-packed. So I guess since I forgot to do our outro and our intro again, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at DCLE14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact with the show, with us on Twitter, on Instagram at BAJ_MMA podcast.
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, it'll take you to a link tree, which will present you a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor. Shout out. First, leaving a voice message. If you have any opinions on the fights that took place, any fights upcoming, if you want to ask us a question, you can do so there up to 60 seconds. And there's a link on there if you want to become a financial supporter of the podcast. Any and all support is appreciated. But that's it. We're out, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.